Hi everyone, brand new topic. If you guys could turn to page 45, 46 in your notes, consumer and producer surplus, and the very first thing I want you to do is write exam hint. The concepts included in this topic, which is relatively small, will undoubtedly come up in the exam. You should be able to see from the diagram a visual demonstration of consumer and producer surplus, but we'll go through that now. Okay, in terms of learning objectives, the things you guys should be able to do. You should be able to define each term. Define the term consumer surplus, illustrate that on a diagram, calculate it from given data, and then do exactly the same thing for producer surplus. Define, illustrate it on a diagram, and calculate it. You will need your calculators today. Okay, in terms of consumer surplus, what is consumer surplus? You guys have got in your notes at the top the definition, and I want you guys to highlight this, please. Okay, what do we mean by consumer surplus? It's the difference between the total amount that consumers are able and willing to pay for a good and the total amount they do pay. Okay, so it's the difference between the total amount that consumers are willing and able to pay for a good and the price they actually do pay. And it's shown by the area indicated underneath the demand curve. Okay, so underneath this line, BC, and above the market price. Okay, so it's going to end up being this area here will be consumer surplus. Now you can see visually where it is. It's above the equilibrium price and underneath the demand curve, and you can see us using the annotation A, B, C. So you've got to be able to identify that on a diagram. Okay. Now, in terms of consumer surplus will change, okay, if the price changes. So if we take the initial scenario here, where supply, so the initial supply curve S1 and demand curve intersect, that means that initially the consumer surplus will be that area underneath the demand curve and above the price. Let me just change my color here a second. Okay, and in terms of what it becomes, okay, it was ABC, but when supply falls in this particular instance, the new price will become 0D, and as a result it will become this area here. So consumer surplus has been reduced on this occasion. Okay, now in terms of the next question, which you guys have got on the top of page 46, in this instance there has been an increase in demand, and obviously take the initial situation, initial supply curve and demand curve, the price was A. Okay, so identify using the letters the initial consumer surplus, and then once demand increases, what becomes the new consumer surplus. Okay, look back at your notes if you need to, look at the definition. Okay, I will press the pause and you guys can come up with the answer. Okay, it shouldn't take you more than 60 to 90 seconds. Okay, one of the objectives was to be able to calculate consumer surplus, and in terms of any time you need to calculate the area of a triangle, hopefully lots of you know, a little reminder on the board, please make sure that you highlight this within your notes. This is really important. Okay, to calculate the area of a triangle, it's height times base. Okay, height times base. Okay, so that's very important. So in terms of this instance, the market price was £5 initially. The maximum price someone would pay was £12. Okay, and so what is consumer surplus? Well, it's the difference okay, £7, multiplied by the amount of people who would buy it. So height was 7, the base is 20, 7 times 20 is equal to 140, okay, divided by 2 because it's obviously not a full square, okay, and the consumer surplus measured in pounds in this instance is equal to £70, okay. So let me just go through that once more, okay. The difference between it's the difference between the price consumers were able and willing to pay, as shown underneath the demand curve, and the price they do pay. They were prepared to pay up to £12, okay, which is £7 above the market rate. Okay, £7 multiplied by the amount of people who would buy it, 140, divided by 2 because it's not a full rectangle. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, quick question for yourselves. In the same scenario, okay, using the same diagram, what would now happen to the amount of consumer surplus if price increased to £9 and quantity demanded fell to 15? Okay, show your workings out on the bottom of page 46. I'll press pause and then go to you for some answers. Again, it shouldn't take you more than 90 seconds. Okay, time for yourselves to have a go in terms of past paper questions. There's 2 of them. It should give you a little feel for this. Certainly in terms of this scenario, you should be fine to work this one out yourselves. Use your calculators. And then the second one, make sure that you follow the question. The question says the diagram opposite represents a market for a product before and after the imposition of a specific sales tax. Okay, specific sales tax, that is going to shift the supply curve to the left. And it asks you to A, calculate the consumer surplus after the imposition of the tax. Okay, so what you have to do is obviously think about, well, wherever the initial equilibrium was, okay, this point here, okay, the initial equilibrium before the tax, and then after the tax, think about where that equilibrium point is. What's the price? Okay, what's the quantity traded? Look at the diagram and work consumer surplus out. And then question B, which students always struggle with at the beginning of the course, it's an interesting one. Calculates the government's total tax revenue after the imposition of the tax. Okay, so to work that out, obviously what you need to do is you need to consider the tax revenue they get, and so you've got to think of how much tax they get per unit, and multiply that by the number of sales. Okay, so the tax per unit. Now to work out the tax per unit, you guys should remember, okay, the size of the tax is the vertical distance between the 2 supply curves. Really important. Look at what's happening. To work that out, you're going to have to calculate all of the little boxes. Okay, 10 big boxes make £20. Okay, so that makes 1 little box worth £2. Okay, you should be able to work it out from there. Okay, I'm press pause at this point and let you guys have a go. It'll take you to do both questions about 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, just a little reminder, there's lots of good videos out there on Tutor to You. Phil Holden is a former economics teacher. Students over many years enjoyed his videos. Please make sure that you're watching videos such as this one, and it can be part of your wider reading. It will cement your understanding. Okay, in terms of producer surplus, what do we mean by producer surplus? Producer surplus, please make sure that you're highlighting. Let me just change colors here again, back to yellow. Producer surplus is the difference between what producers are willing and able to supply a good for and the price they receive. Okay, so it is it's the area underneath the price, okay, and above the supply curve. So above what they're able and willing to supply for, the difference between that and the market price. So it's this area here, A, B, C. Okay, again, whoops, apologies, let me go back a second. Again, producer surplus will change, okay, when the price changes. So just very quickly here, lower supply costs, what was the have occurred in this situation? What was the initial situation? Well, S1 D1, which makes the gap between what producers were able and willing to supply at, okay, as shown by B, D, and the price they get shown by AD. It's that triangle ADB. Okay, now if supply increases, the price will fall, and in this instance, what would happen? The price would fall, so the price becomes 0F, and the new producer surplus becomes this shaded area here. Okay, FEC, the difference between what they were able and willing to supply at, as shown by the supply curve, and the price they get. Okay, let's push on. Okay, a couple of activities for you to do on page 48. Read the scenario, have a go at the question. I will press pause. You should have an answer within 90 seconds. Okay, just in terms of calculating producer surplus, remember we've still got a triangle. So again, the tip, what do we have to learn? Make sure that you can calculate it. To calculate producer surplus, it is going to be height times base divided by 2. Okay, if you look at this instance, we only talked last week, actually you wouldn't normally see a supply curve like this, so this is a bad example. I've stolen from somewhere. Okay, please make note, it is a bad example. Market price in this instance is £10. Producers willing to sell 60. So in terms of this, the difference between what they're prepared to sell at and the price they get is £10 multiplied by 60. 10 times 60 is 600, divided by 2 gives us the answer £300, and that's how you calculate it. Okay, so the difference between what they were able and willing to supply at, in this case 0, and 10 units, so £10 multiplied by the 60 units that they would sell. 10 times 60 gives us 600, divided by 2 gives us 300. Okay, last question on this topic. Okay, and it says, what's the value of producer surplus in the above diagram? Use the data, work it out. Okay, good luck. Okay, shouldn't take you more than a minute probably for this one. Okay. Okay, just to start wrapping things up, again, lots of good videos. Another one from Bill Holden can be used for your wider reading. Okay, something that we will come across later on in the course, consumer and producer surplus together is called community surplus. Okay, so just be aware of that. Check your understanding against the learning objectives. If you can complete them all, you should be confident. If not, make sure you go back and go through it and cement your understanding. Okay, thank you everyone.